Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our fifth Tech Talk. Pramod Abichandani is a technology entrepreneur and an academic. He is the founder of LocoRobo, a robotics company focused on the education, toys, and defense markets. He is an assistant professor at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, where he heads the robotics and data laboratory. The best part about his day is the fantastic people that he gets to work with, and of course, the robots. Pramod, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Robert. Hello, everyone. Hope you are all doing great from wherever you are signing in. I am here in Philadelphia. So if you can see outside my window, there is downtown Philadelphia. It's a beautiful day, and I'm really happy to be here. I am going to share my screen, and so please let me know if you can actually see my screen. I will be looking at my screen and not necessarily at this window. Are you guys able to see my screen? I can see a small window showing my screen, so I'm just going to presume that my screen is actually showing up. So my talk today focuses on the US EdTech market. So anybody out there, any one of you who is thinking about starting up a company or actually catering to the K-12, the kindergarten to 12, or the higher education universities or community colleges market, I hope I can share some secrets to survive for 5 years at least in this market. I'm going to focus on the U.S. market primarily. At the same time, these secrets do apply in different shapes and forms across the global markets. Robert, thank you for the introduction. Just a very few things. I have a PhD in electrical and computer engineering. I am an academic. I started the company LocoRobo when I was a professor at Drexel University here in Philadelphia. I've also had the good fortune of teaching at excellent universities like the University of Pennsylvania at their Wharton School, as well as the New Jersey Institute of Technology, which is where I'm currently based out of. A lot of my funding for research comes from the U.S. Department of Defense, so the Army, DARPA, the Navy, companies such as Lockheed Martin. And of course, as an academic, we always try to find funding from the National Science Foundation, as well as the NIH, the National Institute of Health. LocoRobo stands for Low Cost Robotics. That's the name that we sort of came up with when we thought of the company. I did not know a lot of Spanish back then, but it also stands for crazy robbers. So if you know some Spanish, you are going to look at LocoRobo and you're going to be like, why did these guys name the company LocoRobo? But it truly means low-cost robotics. And today I'm going to specifically talk about our EdTech branch or EdTech division, which was the first division that we started. So it's educational robotics and computer science curriculum for K through 16, which is K through 12 plus the first 4 years of university. I started the company, as you can see me, I had some more hair back then, and I started the company more than 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now, with 3 of my undergraduate students at Drexel. So these are the students, they were undergrads back then. And the idea there was that, hey, can we build robots, because that's my area, and can we build robots such that we can bring them to K-12 in a more meaningful manner than simply having something like Legos, or you're building something but not necessarily programming it, or you're programming something but not using anything physical. So that was 2014, 2015, and it was a pretty unique time because in the United States, President Obama had launched the Computer Science for All initiative, and we were seeing that there were not really a lot of good tools, as well as trained teachers that had a computer science background. Even though the U.S. economy, one of the backbones of the U.S. economy is software, and people who can write good software. So at that time, I had no understanding of business. Absolutely zero understanding of business, but I just had the passion, and I had an incredible team that I was very fortunate to work with. And We started the company, and without knowing much about how to raise in front of investors, we went in front of investors, and we ended up raising a decent amount of venture capital from three really good VC firms: Founder.org, Dream It Ventures, and New Schools Venture Funds. These were the three early backers that we've had, and since then we've not had to raise any money because we've been very fortunate, and we've constantly grown since that first year. So things have been pretty good as far as our business has been business is concerned. Today my goal is to share some secrets when it comes to the edtech markets, and sort of making sure that I share some of these things, some of the mistakes that I made, as well as some of the good decisions that we made, which again, you can only look at these, when you look back and you connect the dots. So here's some secrets that I'm going to share, and I'm not going to, I don't have a lot of slides, so I'm not going to flip a lot of slides. I'm just going to speak to some slides. When it comes to edtech, educational technology, if you look at the market, you will find that the edtech market is actually quite misleading as a name. The name edtech can mean a lot of things, and it could mean teaching curriculum. It could mean software platforms or hardware that goes in buildings for internet or displays for classrooms. Or it could mean as simple as computers or tablets, or catering services through a web platform, or coaching platforms or whatnot. So, edtech is one of these markets. When somebody says, I'm an edtech company or I run an edtech company, you just have to take a step back, and you need to truly understand what they mean when they say edtech. Because really at this point, anything that uses technology that you sell to K-12 or universities or community colleges falls under the umbrella of edtech. So understanding what type of edtech company you are is very critical. And there are a few reasons for that. The biggest reason is your market size. As the name suggests, if your market size is big, then you have more people to sell to, or you have more money to earn. And so understanding what type of edtech company you're going to start or what you're going to run clearly defines the market size. And I'll give you a few examples. When we started, we wanted to do robotics and computer science. Well, guess what? There is not a single class, or at least in 2015, 2016, 2017, the first 3 years of our life cycle, there was not a single class in the US high school or middle schools that was called robotics or robotics through computer science or things like that. There were classes where these were called STEM classes or engineering classes or career technical education classes, but there were no standalone classes that were called robotics, or if there were, they were very few. I would say less than 1% of all the classes. So right there, we sort of shot ourselves in the foot, and we said, wow, gee, we are trying to sell something to schools, but they don't have a solid class schedule where they can accommodate this. And so, that was a mistake that we made. And we had to quickly rectify that, and we did by understanding how to integrate our offerings in other classes that were already established. So from that perspective, if you're going to sell curriculum or things that are used in the classroom, you have to understand that math and English are the biggest markets. Literally every student has to go through math and English. And so those are the most number of classes, the most number of students, the most number of teachers, the most amount of time that somebody spends. So if you're going to think about an edtech company that is based on curriculum, you want to sell curriculum, you might want to look at math and English first, and then you can go through the other subjects. Same with internet technology. Today, the biggest market in edtech is if you can figure out good internet for students. Students across the country, you won't believe it, because of the pandemic, students don't have access to internet. Not that they don't have access to cell phones from their parents, they do, but you can't really run a school day on the cell phone, not even on an iPad. You need a solid internet with a solid computer. And guess what? companies that can actually sell good internet technology, if it's routers and boosters or whatnot, they're making a lot of money today. Same thing for software. At your university, you probably have Canvas or Blackboard or Moodle or some sort of an learning management system. Those systems are making a lot of money right now, and they themselves, they call themselves an Edtech company. So, understanding the market will really help you sort of laser focus on what your product is going to be and where it's going to lie. Another big chunk of the EdTech market is computers or tablets. One of the biggest EdTech companies in the world is right now Google, because they provide Chromebooks, or Apple. Apple has always been a leader in EdTech because they provided computers back in the day, and now they provide iPads. These are established leaders. So understanding what type of EdTech market or EdTech company you are will help you laser focus and will help you quickly determine your market size. Again, these are just a few examples. There need to be a lot more on this slide, but I'll run out of space. But the biggest secret is identify what slice of the EdTech market or where in this EdTech umbrella are you're going to lie as a company, because you want to make sure that you can size your market size, or you can size your market very quickly. EdTech or students or kids are probably the only market where your customers are not your users. So just think about it, okay? If you are a student who is, I don't know, an elementary school student who is making all the purchases, either the parents or the teachers. Same for middle schoolers. Now, when you're high schoolers, things differ a little bit. You get some purchasing power. But for the most part, when it comes to educational technology, your customer is not necessarily your user. So somebody who's going to cut you a check, or who's going to write you a check or give you some money to buy your product or service is not necessarily going to be the user. And this is a big discrepancy that can happen when you're starting up. You need to quickly answer the question, who's your customer versus who's your user? We at LocoRobo, we have identified there are three types of entities in the market for us that are relevant for us. For you, they might be different, and that's the thing. You have to discover who your customers are versus who your users are. For us, they're the students, then they're the teachers, and then they're the admins. These could be principals or school district leaders or director of curricula or whatnot. Each one of them requires a specific type of relationship with you, your company, your product, your services, as well as each one of these entities. You need to make sure you don't talk to them about things that are not relevant to them. So an admin may not a principal may not necessarily care about every single lesson in your curriculum. A teacher, on the other hand, may care for every single lesson in your curriculum, but may defer all the purchasing questions to the admins. So just understanding who's your customer versus who your user is will quickly help you understand or articulate your marketing messages. It will quickly help you articulate, again, where should you put your effort to sell something versus where should you put your effort to create user interfaces and user experiences. There is a very well-known gentleman by the name of Steve Blank. He has something called the business model canvas. And again, we did not know what we were doing when we started. I did not know what I was doing when I started. But when I used this customer discovery process, it became really clear who our customers were and who our users were. And it was interesting. For the first 2 years, we were struggling to even make the first $100,000. By the time we figured this out in our third year, we were already past $3 million in revenue. So, it was a pretty quick growth for us, but it was painful because we did not know how to do proper customer discovery. This process of understanding who your customers are versus who your users are. So secret number 2, answer this customer versus user question as soon as possible. The sooner you do it, the better your marketing, the sharper your brand image, the sharper your messaging to the right people in the market. The third thing is sales cycle, and nobody will tell you this when you start a business that sells to schools or universities, for that matter. The average sales cycle, in other words, from the point from where you connect to a potential customer, a teacher, an admin, whoever in the market, to the point that you can actually get a check from them, right? This entire cycle can take anywhere between 4 to 18 months in a normal year, in a non-pandemic year. So you can imagine how crazy this is, where you meet someone today, you cannot expect a check from them till February or March next year. That's the optimistic timeline. Usually it's, if you're meeting them today, you're expecting a check from them in summer next year. Okay, so even if an order comes in, it takes anywhere between 30 to 90 days for the cash to come to you, for a check to come to you. So they may place an order, you'll give them what they want, or your product or your service, you'll invoice them, and it still takes 30 to 90 days for that cash to come in. So this is a very hard lesson that we learned. Nobody told me this. Again, we met amazing people during this journey. We have mentors, we have advisors, who ultimately helped us understand how to do this. But thank God we had some cash in the bank. Thank God we had raised that venture capital, as well as I had put in some of my own money, as I was a professor when I started this. So thankfully I had some money in my bank. But, you know, there were times when we didn't get a check for 6 months, you know, and so having enough cash in the bank to support the company for long sales cycles is critical. You will run out of cash. Everybody needs to make money. Everybody needs to actually get salaries. But what are you going to do when revenues take time? This is a standard problem across any B2B kind of a company, but it gets really amplified when you're doing B2E, business to education type of sales. This is also true for other places in the world. And sometimes it's actually worse in other places, where it takes years to sometimes get money or your revenue, to realize that revenue from your customers. So just making sure that you have enough cash in the bank to support your team, to support your company for a long sales cycle is your third secret. Just plan. That is an absolute necessity. So the fourth thing or secret that you want to sort of really take it to heart is your pricing model. What do I mean by that? Pricing model is basically, how do you charge your customers? How do you price your product? How does the customer need to charge or need to be charged? And you know, in an ideal world, you want to lock your customer, right? You want to lock your teacher, lock your principal, lock your school district administrators, anybody that you have. In an ideal world, you want to lock them in a contract that is recurring, subscription, right? Subscription is the name of the game. Everything these days, you see, you know, you have anything from Netflix to Spotify to anything else. Everything is based on a monthly subscription. These are called contractual business models, right? You are signing a contract with the company and you're saying, I agree to using your services while paying money to you on a recurring basis. And that's great. And you know, when a service costs you $10 a month, that's a completely different model than when you are trying to sell something to a school, a public school. Remember, most schools in the US are public schools, okay? Very few schools actually, if you look at the total number of schools and figure out how many of them are private schools, very few of them are private schools. Most of them are public schools. There's a large chunk of charter schools, but even then, regardless, schools are notorious when it comes to their funding. In other words, you absolutely cannot depend on a school to say, okay, let's buy your product this year, or let's subscribe to your web platform or web service this year. And you know what? We are going to do a subscription model with you guys, okay? And we're going to charge you this much, you know, X number of dollars today. And then October 9th, 2021, your subscription will need to be renewed. Well, guess what? Those schools will simply say, oh, sorry, we don't have the money. What are you going to do? Are you going to kill our subscription and not have students be part of your service? Like, students are going to suffer the most? Or are you going to let us use your product and hopefully we will get you some money? And that is a moral choice that as a CEO, as a company, you have to make. You know, ultimately, remember, anything you sell to EdTech, the ultimate beneficiary is the student. Now, do you really want to mess around with a student's education because a school did not pay you a subscription? Well, that's a question that you need to answer, and everybody has a different answer to that. But the reality is that money in bank today is worth more than the money you're expecting to get next year. Okay, so if you can get money today from the school, from the university, from the EdTech system, get it. Don't try to sort of lock them into some sort of a subscription when you know, or when you should know, that school funding, regardless of what part of the country you are, even we know about Canada as well, we sell to Canada, we know this, we know about Europe, we sell to many countries in Europe, same idea. School funding is always volatile, and so you will not have a guarantee that next year they're going to renew your service. So whenever you think about a pricing model, it's okay to front load. It's called front loading, where you charge them a lot of money up front, so that they can it gets distributed across the years. So if they use your product for 5 years, you can explain to them that, hey, even though it costs a lot this year, but you're going to have this product for 5 to 7 years. So if you divide it by 5 or 7, you'll see that it's a pretty inexpensive purchase for you guys. So understanding a pricing model and sort of fine-tuning your pricing model is absolutely critical. Now, if you're a big company like Blackboard or Canvas or Moodle or these kind of, where all your courses are put in place, you have some pull, but as a startup, you always have to, walk on that fine line between, do you want to lock them into subscription with the risk of not getting money next year, or do you want to charge them a lot today and not worry about future revenue? Finally, and the most important thing to understand about the EdTech market, this is actually true for any market, any product, anything that you sell ever, but not all customers are equal. And I mean business-wise, okay? All humans are equal, and yes, we truly believe in that, although some have more hair than others. But in terms of customers and your business, not all customers are going to be equal. And so the amount of time and effort you will spend on a customer, that should be directly proportional to the estimated future value that they will add to your company. And the value can mean different things. Okay, this is a very nuanced slide, nuanced points. I'll try my best to do justice to the slide. This has to deal with what is called customer lifetime value. Okay, CLV, customer lifetime value. And the value that a customer adds to your, remember, if they're a customer, they've already paid for your initial purchase, right? You've already made a sale once, so they are your customers. Now the question is, how much time do you want to spend on them? These could also apply to people who have not spent money with you, but you really truly need to understand what is the value this person or this teacher or this director of technology at New York Public Schools, or the school district, like just anybody who is higher up or has some sort of a pull to buy your product or service. What is the value that this person is going to bring, not just right now in terms of the financial, in terms of the sale aspect, but can this person serve as a referral for me in the future? In EdTech, teachers talk to each other. This is true for every field, every market, but in EdTech, it's mind-boggling how tight-knit everybody is. So can somebody serve as your referral? Can somebody actually give you product feedback that is not complaining, they're not being lazy or entitled as a customer, but they're actually truly, vested in your product, that they're giving you feedback? Or can they become brand ambassadors? Can they go out at a conference, or can they go out and anywhere, in a small meetup or in a small district meeting or whatever, and can they talk your product or service up? Can they talk your brand up? Can they talk your company up? All these things, some of them are tangible, some of them are intangible assets that you're collecting or accruing over time. These all factor into what is called customer lifetime value. And so this is, I think, the most difficult thing. And to this day, I haven't mastered any of this. But I would say slide number 5 is definitely where I continue to learn a lot. And we've gotten really good at it, but I wish we were even better, because ultimately this defines how much revenue we bring into the company. This defines the bottom lines and the top lines of the year for us, and it should do the same for everybody else out there. So secret number 5, and this is my last secret, learn to figure out the estimated lifetime value. Remember, if you're talking about future, you're not talking about the money that they have already given you as a customer. We're talking about what is the estimated value that this customer, this particular person, is going to add to your company. And based on that, you should be either putting in a lot of time. You should assign an account executive or a person who's constantly answering emails or checking in with them. Or you should, maybe you give them a discount. Maybe you figure out what's the right strategy for your product or service based on the lifetime value. There are many ways of finding lifetime value. Some are more mathematical, modeling based, statistical. Others are less quantitative, more qualitative, and different strokes for different folks. But at the end of the day, finding the lifetime value of a customer, of a potential customer, or a customer who has already bought into your ecosystem of products or services will serve you well. It will be one of the biggest benefits of what you could accomplish for your company. So, okay, that's all I wanted to talk about. I know it's a short period of time. Here's my email address. Again, my name is Pramod Abichandani, Pramod at LocoRobo.co. I'm going to stop my share and see if there are any questions. Any questions?
Thanks, Pramod, for your talk. There is like a 30-second delay, so you might see questions a bit delayed. Okay. It looks like you do have a question in the chat.
Oh, sorry about that. Am I looking at questions?
If you click the stage tab.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was not looking at the right thing. Okay, there are a few questions. So let's see. I'm going to start with. I suppose I'll start with Anant Sinha. Okay, so Anant, you don't have a question, but I'm glad that this talk was very helpful. Manuel, you have a question. Can you have a business model where the product is free and still make a profit with the user data? Would you say that is ethical? Okay, so just to be clear, when it comes to the edtech market, there are so many rules and laws about collecting student data or usage data that I would be surprised that you can get away with a business model that makes your product free, but you're collecting data. Again, if your users are students, there are so many laws, and there's one called COPA, C-O-P-A. There's one called CIPA, I think, C-I-P-A. These are all children protection laws. So, I'll give you a simple example. We sell drones to the market, right? We sell drones to K-12, and here's a drone, right? This is a simple drone, and you see how this drone has a camera in front of it? This can be a potential lawsuit, because if the camera is taking pictures, and if you have a lot of drones in the classroom and a student is photographed, and like if a student has, again, a child is under 18, which means the child is a minor, and if a drone that we sell, and we don't sell this, we don't sell a drone with a camera, but a camera on a drone can be a potential lawsuit. So you just have to be very, very careful about data when it comes to students. You can give something for free, and then you can charge. There's freemium models and all these things, but user data, and if the users are students, I think that's a pretty you'll have to be really innovative there to skirt around, to make it all legal. Does that answer your question? I will move on to the next one. What are the biggest names in EdTech? You're welcome, Manuel. So Noah, you have a question. What are the biggest names in EdTech? Well, it depends. Again, the EdTech umbrella is huge. And so, I'll tell you, our biggest competitors are Lego and Vex. Those are our competitors. And we would say, like, in the past 5.5 years, we are now in, I would say, the top 3 or top 4 companies in the US, not worldwide, in terms of, robotics and computer science. But again, depending on, like Apple and Google are the 2 biggest computer suppliers or tablet suppliers in EdTech. So if you want to come up with a new computer or like a new system of computing for students, you're looking at Apple or Google as your competitors. So when it comes to publishing, McGraw is huge, Scholastic is huge. So you really have to understand who these people are, depending on what your product is. So Noah, I can't give you all the names because there's so many of them, but I hope this gives you an idea of how to go about sort of thinking about EdTech in general. Eric, you have a question. What is your advice for EdTech startup firms who already have 2-3 established clients and are trying to expand into different campuses? So expansion is subjective, right? Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for sales, or are you just looking for adoption, like pilots, right? And so those are 2 different types of expansions. So and at the risk of sounding negative about pilots, I don't mean to sound negative, but I'd never believed in pilots. I believed in somebody paying for your product, and then you are honest upfront. You say, like, look, my product, we are a startup. It's only been 2 years, so there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be bugs, but we also pricing it accordingly. And guess what? We are going to be there all the way with you, so that we can improve our product, and you can actually get a nice experience in the classroom or for your work. And so, again, talking is the number one thing you want to do. Find the people on these different campuses that are in the position to buy your product, even if it's at a very discounted rate. And then, if you have a couple of established clients, use them as your referrals. Use them as people who can speak to the potential clients, and see if, after you speak with somebody on these new campuses, new universities or schools, now you say, hey, by the way, we have a list of 3 existing customers who would be very happy to give you some feedback about us. And you go from there. But the bottom line is, you want to start with a relationship. You want to start with a conversation, and try to understand if how you can be useful to them. Okay, and that's the critical thing. You want to be useful to them.
I think that's all the time we have for fielding questions. Do you mind actually dropping your email in the stage chat?
Sure.
I think Kristen had one question. Anyone else?
Yeah.
But if you could just reach out to Pramod via email, that'd be great, so we can move on to our next talk. But thank you so much, Pramod. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, everybody. Kristen, I'll reach out separately. Take care.
All right. give us a few seconds for us to hand it off to the next presenter.